Welcome to the Infidelity Tales. Before we dive into today's story, please take a second to like and subscribe to our channel. We appreciate your support. Now, let's get started. The air was warm, with a slight chill of winter seeping in through the cracks of the office building's large glass doors as I stepped into the party alongside her. She looked radiant that evening, dressed in a sleek black gown, her hair done up elegantly, and her smile dazzling in a way that could make anyone forget their surroundings. For a moment, even I forgot mine. I was there for her after all, attending her company's year-end holiday party to support her and get a glimpse of her world. I'm Liam, 31 years old, and I fix cars for a living. Not the type of work that generally attracts glamour or high accolades, but honest, fulfilling work that I've loved ever since I was a kid. My father taught me how to handle tools and understand the soul of a car when I was barely tall enough to see over the hood. Those lessons stuck with me, and now I run my own little shop. I'm proud of what I do, even if the world doesn't always see value in it. She, on the other hand, worked in marketing, a corporate powerhouse in an industry I could barely wrap my head around. Her job was all about appearances, trends, and networking, this infinite web of polished words and perfect smiles. Despite our differences, I thought we had something special. She often talked about how much she admired my passion for what I do, how she respected my work ethic. That's what I clung to when she invited me to this party, assuring me that I would fit in just fine. I wasn't entirely comfortable. Parties like this, all suits and sleek dresses, weren't my scene. I'm a jeans and t-shirt guy, the kind of person who feels more at home with grease on his hands than a cocktail glass. But I dressed up for her, putting on the nicest suit I owned, and walked into that shimmering office with the hope that she was right. At first, things seemed manageable. People were friendly enough, though I could sense the subtle shift in tone when they realized I wasn't one of them. Still, I smiled, shook hands, and did my best to make small talk, while she floated effortlessly through the room, laughing and chatting with her colleagues. She was in her element, and I was happy to see her so confident and comfortable. Then, it started. It was subtle at first, just a few offhand comments that made me pause. One of her coworkers, a tall guy in a designer suit with hair that looked like it belonged in a shampoo commercial, asked me what I did for a living. I run a car repair shop, I said simply, not feeling the need to embellish. Before he could respond, she jumped in with a laugh. "Isn't that adorable?" she said, her voice dripping with amusement. "He's like a modern-day grease monkey." The group around us chuckled, their laughter light and fleeting, but it hit me like a punch to the gut. I forced a strained smile, glancing at her to see if she realized how condescending that sounded. She didn't. Or if she did, she didn't care. "It's just a joke," she said with a shrug when she caught my look. "Lighten up." I tried to brush it off, telling myself I was being too sensitive, but the words stuck with me, gnawing at the edges of my mind as the evening wore on. Later, during a toast, she delivered the final blow. She stood up, raising her glass with a wide smile, and began thanking her team for their hard work over the past year. Her speech was confident, polished, and full of the kind of charm that made her so successful in her field. But then, as if it were an afterthought, she turned the attention to me. "And a big thank you to my fiancé," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. "Liam may not be very corporate, but he sure knows his way around an engine. If anyone's car breaks down, you know who to call." The room erupted in laughter, not the polite kind either. This was full-bodied, chest-heaving laughter, the kind that leaves no room for doubt about how the joke landed. My face burned as dozens of eyes turned toward me. their smiles holding just a hint of pity, just a touch of superiority. She stood there, basking in the attention, her grin wide and proud, as if she'd just delivered the punchline of the year. I looked at her, hoping to see some sign that she understood how humiliating this was for me, but she was too busy enjoying the moment. That was when it hit me. This wasn't the first time she'd made comments like this. She'd always brushed them off as jokes, little jabs that I'd told myself didn't matter because she loved me and I loved her. But standing there, surrounded by laughter that felt like nails on my skin, I realized something. She didn't respect me. Not really. I excused myself and stepped outside, the cold night air biting against my skin as I tried to collect my thoughts. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions, anger, embarrassment, disappointment, but above all, there was clarity. A few minutes later, she came outside, a glass of wine in her hand and an exasperated look on her face. "What's wrong with you?" she asked, her tone casual, as if nothing had happened. "What's wrong with me?" I repeated, my voice low and steady. "Do you have any idea how humiliating that was?" She blinked, feigning confusion. "Humiliating? Come on, it was just a joke. Everyone loved it. You're overreacting." "Overreacting?" I said, my voice rising despite my effort to stay calm. "You turned my career, something I've worked hard for, something I'm proud of, into a joke. You made me the punchline in front of people who don't even know me." Her smile faded, replaced by a defensive glare. "You're being too sensitive. I was just trying to lighten the mood." I shook my head, the weight of years of subtle insults and dismissive comments crashing down on me. "This isn't about one joke. This is about how you see me, how you've always seen me. You say you respect what I do, but your actions say otherwise. I can't spend my life with someone who doesn't value me or my work." Her eyes widened in shock, and for a moment she looked genuinely hurt. But then her expression hardened. "Fixing cars doesn't make you special," she snapped. "It's not exactly a remarkable career." Her words stung, but they also solidified my decision. Slowly, I took off the engagement ring and placed it in her hand. "I deserve to be with someone who values me for who I am," I said quietly. I turned and walked back inside, ignoring the curious stares as I grabbed my coat and left the party. She called after me, her voice desperate, but I didn't look back. The cold air hit me like a slap as I stepped outside, but for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Days passed, and the initial rush of emotions from that night began to settle. The first sensation I felt was relief. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I felt like I could breathe again. The weight of constantly trying to prove my worth to someone who treated it like a joke had been lifted. But the relief was quickly followed by doubt. Had I overreacted? Had I made a mistake by breaking things off so publicly and so abruptly? These questions gnawed at me, keeping me awake at night as I replayed the events over and over in my mind. Despite my attempts to move forward, there was no escaping the fallout. The news of our broken engagement spread quickly through our social circles, and it didn't take long for her version of the story to make its rounds. According to her, I was the one who had blown everything out of proportion. "It was just a joke," she told anyone who would listen. "He's so insecure about his job that he couldn't handle a little teasing." I had no idea he'd react like that. I tried to ignore the whispers and the sideways glances from mutual friends, but they were hard to avoid. Some people reached out to me directly, asking for my side of the story, while others avoided me altogether, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. A few of her friends, people I'd barely interacted with, sent me snide messages, accusing me of being immature and selfish for ending things so dramatically. One even suggested that I apologize to her for embarrassing her in front of her coworkers. For a while, I considered staying silent. I've never been one to air my personal grievances in public, and the idea of engaging in a back-and-forth battle of narratives felt petty. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that silence would only allow her to control the story. She was painting me as the bad guy, and if I didn't speak up, people would assume her version of events was the truth. So, reluctantly, I decided to tell my side. I started with the people closest to me, friends and family, who knew me well enough to understand the context. I explained how her comments at the party were just the latest in a long line of dismissive and condescending remarks about my career. I told them how I tried, time and time again, to communicate my feelings to her, only to be met with excuses and defensiveness. Most importantly, I made it clear that my decision to end the engagement wasn't about a single incident. It was about a pattern of behavior that had eroded the foundation of our relationship. To my relief, most of them understood. Some were even supportive, telling me that I'd done the right thing by standing up for myself. A few admitted that they'd noticed her dismissive attitude toward me in the past, but hadn't wanted to say anything. I always thought she seemed a little superior, one friend confessed, like she thought she was better than you because of her job. But not everyone was so understanding. A mutual acquaintance, a guy who worked in the same industry as her, sent me a long message defending her. "You have to understand," he wrote. "She's under a lot of pressure at work. Sometimes people make jokes to lighten the mood. It doesn't mean she doesn't respect you." I didn't bother responding. There was no point in trying to explain myself to someone who clearly didn't get it. The turning point came a few weeks later when I received a message from one of her coworkers, a woman I barely knew but had met briefly at the party. She told me that she'd overheard my ex talking about me at work, boasting about how she'd settled for someone like me because I was safe and easy to manage. According to her, my ex had painted herself as the victim of my insecurity, while simultaneously mocking me behind my back. "I just thought you should know," the coworker wrote. "You deserve better than that." Her message hurt, but it also confirmed what I'd already suspected. My ex had never truly respected me or my career. She had always seen me as someone to look down on, someone who didn't measure up to her idea of success. And while it stung to realize how little she valued me, it also gave me the closure I needed to move on. With that chapter of my life behind me, I threw myself into my work. My shop became my sanctuary, a place where I could focus on the things that truly mattered to me. I started taking on more challenging projects, learning new skills, and even mentoring a few young mechanics who were just starting out in the industry. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I was in control of my own narrative. I also began to reconnect with myself outside of work. I took up hobbies I'd neglected during my relationship, like hiking and photography. I even booked a solo trip to the mountains, a chance to clear my head and find some peace in the solitude of nature. It was during that trip, standing on a rocky outcrop overlooking a sprawling valley, that I realized how much I'd been holding myself back. I'd spent so much time trying to fit into her world, trying to prove that I was good enough, that I'd forgotten to embrace the things that made me who I was. The months that followed were a time of growth and self-discovery. I learned to stop caring about what other people thought of me or my career. I stopped comparing myself to others and started measuring my success by my own standards. And most importantly, I learned to value myself in a way that I never had before. As for her, I heard through the grapevine that things hadn't gone as smoothly for her. Word of her comments about me and her behavior at the party had spread among her coworkers, and it wasn't long before they started to affect her reputation. A mutual friend told me that she'd been passed over for a promotion she'd been vying for, with management citing concerns about her professionalism. I didn't take any pleasure in her misfortune, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of justice. Actions have consequences, after all. Eventually, the calls and messages from mutual acquaintances began to dwindle, and her name stopped coming up in conversation. It was as if the world had quietly moved on, leaving the drama of our failed engagement behind. And in a way, that's exactly what I needed. A fresh start, free from the shadows of the past. Looking back now, I can see that ending the engagement was the best decision I could have made. It wasn't easy, and it certainly wasn't painless, but it was necessary. I deserved to be with someone who valued me for who I was, not someone who saw me as a punchline. And while it took me a while to get there, I'm proud to say that I've finally found that sense of self-worth. Life isn't perfect, and I'm still figuring things out as I go. But one thing I know for sure is that I'll never settle for less than I deserve. Again, whether it's in my career, my relationships, or my own sense of self, I've learned to hold my head high and take pride in who I am. And if there's one thing I hope others can take away from my story, it's this. Never let anyone make you feel small. You are enough just as you are.